Thomas Greene was a man whose name didn't just open doors, it built the buildings those doors stood in. He lived a life most people only fantasized about. A penthouse above the clouds, bespoke suits, a relentless calendar of meetings, galas, and press appearances. His empire expanded as steadily as his detachment from anything real. Only one connection tethered him to something more than power: his engagement to Alice McGraw. A woman as elegant as she was ambitious, Alice matched Thomas in pedigree and public image. She was by his side for every camera flash, every curated headline. But beneath her polished charm was a restless hunger, a craving for something deeper than boardroom victories and power couple press. She had once loved Thomas, or perhaps the version of him who existed outside the pages of Forbes. But he was always moving, always chasing the next deal, too busy mastering the world to notice her slipping away. His younger sister Layla had seen the signs early. In the quiet of their private library, she'd warned him gently, "Don't invest your heart too deeply, Thomas. Not until you're sure she's worthy of it." But Thomas, ever the pragmatist, dismissed her words. Appearances mattered. Loyalty could be measured in consistency, he thought. He believed in Alice, because it was logical to. But logic had nothing to do with what Alice was doing behind his back. She had long since taken comfort in the arms of other men, filling the void Thomas's ambition left behind. Whispers trickled through their social circles, curious glances at events, muffled conversations over champagne. Still, Thomas remained blind, insulated by pride and certainty. Until the night everything shattered. It happened at a glittering business summit, another stage for success, another room filled with champagne and powerful handshakes. As Thomas worked the room, his eyes landed on Alice. She was laughing, radiant but not with him. She stood beside a sharply dressed man who leaned in, took her hand, and kissed it slowly. She didn't flinch. She smiled, truly smiled, and leaned into the touch as though it belonged to someone she actually loved. Flashbulbs went off. Guests noticed. Whispers became gasps. In a matter of minutes, the story raced through society's veins like a virus. Thomas didn't react, at least not publicly. But the betrayal cracked something inside him. He left the gala early. The next morning he canceled all public appearances. And from that day forward, Thomas Greene became a different man. He was colder, harder, sharper. He buried his emotions under blueprints and numbers, expanding his empire with a vengeance. He stopped showing up anywhere he didn't control. Even his laughter, once rare but genuine, disappeared. The seasons turned. Wealth came in waves. His name climbed lists, but inside the emptiness grew, echoing through his vast penthouse like a ghost, until one quiet evening in early autumn. The sun had begun to set over the city as Thomas wandered through the park, hands in his pockets, thoughts heavy. The wind rustled through the trees, children's laughter ringing in the distance, a soundtrack from a life he'd never known. And then a small voice broke his solitude. "Excuse me, mister. Are you unhappy?" He turned to find a little girl, no more than 7, staring up at him with earnest blue eyes and a mess of dark curls. A teddy bear dangled from her arm. Her question stunned him. Direct, innocent, impossible to lie to. "I suppose I am," he replied, the honesty surprising even himself. She pointed to a picnic blanket nearby. "You can share our dinner. Mama says food makes sad people feel better." Thomas followed her gesture. A woman stood nearby under a willow tree, arranging plates while speaking softly on the phone. She looked up just as Daisy tugged him toward the blanket. Her name was Lilly Maxwell. She didn't greet him with awe or deference. She simply smiled, closed her phone, and offered him a seat with quiet warmth, as if he were a friend who just arrived late. That evening, Thomas stayed longer than he meant to. He listened to Daisy's chatter, marveled at her unfiltered joy, and found something grounding in Lily's calm presence. She didn't ask about his work or his past. She listened. Really listened. Over sandwiches and apple pie, Thomas shared fragments of himself, the first true conversation he'd had in months. The next week, he showed up at Daisy's school unannounced, delivering a donation of tablets for the students. He hadn't expected recognition, but Daisy spotted him instantly and ran to him like family. "When are we having another picnic?" she asked, clinging to him. That Saturday at 10, they met again. And again the next. The park became their little kingdom, the willow tree their home base. Lilly revealed bits of her story over time. 5 years divorced, her ex rarely present. She didn't speak ill of him. She didn't need to. The strength in her stillness said enough. Thomas told her of the betrayal, of Alice, of the walls he'd built to survive it. Lilly never pressed. She never asked for more than what he gave freely. With her, he was simply Thomas, not a brand or a billionaire, just a man learning how to be present again. The weekends became rituals. Daisy's drawings filled his fridge. His penthouse no longer echoed, it carried life, and his heart, long dormant, started to beat with something real. But peace is fragile. One day, a candid photo of the three of them, Thomas, Lilly, and Daisy, laughing on the blanket, surfaced online. At first, it sparked only warmth, but not everyone took it kindly. Especially Alice. The image reignited everything she'd buried: resentment, envy, a twisted sense of possession. Soon, rumors spread. Was Thomas in love? Was this a rebound? A secret family? To protect them, Thomas insisted they were just friends. But gossip has its own engine. The stories only grew louder. In a painful but necessary decision, Thomas paused their picnics. He couldn't stomach the idea that his presence might harm the peace Lilly and Daisy had built. Still, he called Daisy every night. "Are you coming back?" she asked softly once. "I will," he promised. "This storm won't last forever." And in that quiet moment, Thomas Greene, the man who once measured success by square footage and Forbes rankings, realized that what he'd found with Lilly and Daisy wasn't a distraction. It was the only thing that had ever truly mattered. A beginning born of heartbreak, slowly blossoming into a life worth living. 3 months passed. The city roared on, unforgiving, loud, electric. But in Thomas's world, everything had quieted. His name still echoed in boardrooms, contracts still landed on his desk, and headlines still attached themselves to his every move. Yet, none of it held the same weight. The only name that stayed with him now was Daisy's, whispered nightly as he stared out over the skyline from his penthouse window. Her last words still echoed, "You promised we'd go every Saturday." He had kept his promise, just not in the way she'd hoped. There were letters. A small notebook arrived every week. Childlike drawings scrawled in crayon, her teddy bear picnicking with a tall man in a suit. Her mother's gentle updates tucked behind them, never angry, only understanding. But the ache of absence grew heavier with each envelope. Then, in early spring, a courier delivered something different, a pressed daisy, carefully taped to a card. Below it, written in Lily's neat handwriting, "She asked me to send this. She said, it's a piece of our kingdom. We're still here, just in case you ever want to come back." Thomas stood in his living room, card in hand, undone by the simplicity. That night, he canceled his meetings for the week. No press, no appearances. Only a name on his GPS. Willow Park. Lilly didn't look surprised when he appeared. She was sitting alone beneath the willow, the same blanket folded at her side, a thermos of tea resting on one corner. Her eyes lifted to him, soft but steady, reading him in a way that always made Thomas feel stripped of his armor. "I didn't think you'd come," she said gently, not rising. "I never really left," he replied, voice low. A moment passed before she offered the other end of the blanket. He sat, exhaling a breath that had been trapped for weeks. They didn't speak much that first hour. Birds chattered in the trees. Distant laughter rippled from other families. The world carried on, but here in their quiet kingdom, time slowed. Eventually, Thomas glanced toward the path. "Where is she?" Lilly smiled faintly. "I told her not to wait. I didn't want her heart to break twice. But I also told her to check the hill around 10. Same as always." Almost on cue, a voice pierced the air. "Thomas." Daisy came barreling down the slope, a blur of curls and joy, the bear still clutched tight in her hand. She crashed into him with all the energy a child could hold, and he caught her like a man who'd been drowning. "You came back," she whispered into his jacket. "You really came back." "I did," he whispered back, "and I won't leave again, not unless you tell me to." The next few weeks unfolded with grace. No cameras, no curious headlines, just the slow rebuilding of a bond interrupted by fear. Thomas no longer made promises with caution. He showed up for movie nights, for Saturday picnics, for Daisy's school play where she played a talking tree and scanned the crowd until her eyes landed on him in the back row. The moment she saw him, she waved right in the middle of her line, and he waved back, a smile tugging at his lips. With Lilly, the changes were subtler. More silence, less distance. A shared cup of tea became two. A walk home became lingering on her stoop. A touch to the arm became a longer gaze, one that said thank you, and I'm trying, all at once. But trust, for both of them, was a cautious guest. One night, after Daisy had fallen asleep on the couch with her arms around the bear, Thomas lingered at the door. He looked down at Lilly, who leaned against the frame. "I've been thinking," he said. "Dangerous habit," she teased. He smiled. "About what you said the first time we met, about food making sad people feel better." She tilted her head. "I want to be more than just the man who brings the pie," he said. "But I don't want to ruin this." Lily's eyes were gentle but firm. "Then don't rush. You've already given us something real, and that's more than most people do." He nodded, then leaned forward, just enough to press a kiss to her forehead, brief and reverent. "I'll see you Saturday," he said. The sun poured golden through the trees of Willow Park, dappling the grass with flecks of warmth. Daisy giggled as she darted through a grove of lilac bushes, her arms stretched wide like wings. Thomas trailed behind with the picnic basket, a soft smile playing on his lips. Ahead, Lilly waited beneath their willow, arranging the blanket with practiced ease, her eyes lifting to meet his with quiet welcome. It should have been perfect. But as Thomas rounded the last bend, he saw her, Alice, standing like a statue carved from ice, her silk trench coat cinched tight, sunglasses perched in her hair, lips lacquered into a glossy, practiced smile. She waited, just beyond the picnic blanket, as if summoned by the very joy she had once discarded. Lilly stood between her and Daisy, arms casually folded. Her face was calm, but her posture alert. She didn't flinch when Alice turned toward her. "Hello," Alice said, with honeyed ease. "You must be Lilly. I've read about you. Well, the parts that made it to the gossip blogs anyway." Lilly offered a cool smile. "Then I suppose you know just enough to keep your distance." Thomas arrived just in time to catch the tail end of that line. His heart thudded. Daisy was only a few paces behind, chasing a butterfly. "Daisy, stay near the tree, sweetheart," Lilly called gently. The little girl nodded and skipped off. "Alice," Thomas said, voice tight with restraint. "You don't belong here." "I'm not here to cause a scene," Alice replied, her gaze flicking toward Lilly again. "Just a friendly check-in. It's amazing, really, how fast your tastes changed. From society galas to park picnics and teddy bears. Who knew the elusive Thomas Greene could be tamed with peanut butter and juice boxes?" Lilly remained unfazed. "You seem upset. Is it because someone else makes him laugh now? Or because he stopped pretending you ever really did?" Alice's smile froze. Thomas stepped forward. "Leave, now." But Alice wasn't finished. "I'm not here to win you back, Thomas," she said, turning toward him fully. "This isn't about romance. It's about legacy. About optics. You're one of the most powerful men in this city. And here you are, playing house with a woman who has nothing to offer you but complication." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You think the press was bad before? You think the board doesn't talk? Keep this up, and I'll make sure Lily's name is the first thing people think of when they hear yours. You won't be able to do charity work, let alone close a deal, without someone asking if your new little family project is the reason you lost your edge." Lilly stood then, walking up beside Thomas. Her voice was quiet but ironclad. "You think I scare," she said to Alice. "But I'm not afraid of you. Not your name, your games, or the ghosts you want him to carry. I've buried worse pain than your gossip. and I raised a daughter through it. Thomas's voice broke in, low and controlled. If you ever threaten her or Daisy again, I'll bury you legally, not emotionally. That's not a warning. It's a fact. Alice's eyes widened, just a flicker of surprise, before her expression rehardened. So be it, she said with false lightness. I only wanted you to understand what you're choosing. It's not me you'll be hurting. And with that, she turned and walked away, heels crunching on gravel like a closing door. They watched her leave in silence. Lily's hand drifted into Thomas's, grounding him. He hadn't even realized how tightly he'd clenched his fists until her fingers gently unwound them. You okay? She asked. No, he said truthfully. But I will be. He looked at her then, not as a man looking at someone he might love, but as a man seeing clearly for the first time, who had stood beside him when it mattered. Are you okay? He asked in return. I've had worse words thrown at me, Lily said with a quiet smile. But if you're going to keep us in your world, Thomas, you'll need to decide. Are you protecting us by walking away, or by standing still and letting people talk? Daisy came running over just then, throwing herself onto the blanket, breathless and laughing, none the wiser to the storm that had just passed. Thomas knelt beside her and smoothed back her curls, heart full of things he didn't yet know how to say. Then he looked back at Lily. I'm not walking away, he said. Not again. She didn't ask him to promise. She just nodded. And as Daisy pulled sandwiches from the basket, and the sun pressed warm upon their backs, Thomas knew that something had shifted, this time not from fear, but from a vow quietly made in the marrow of his bones. To fight for what mattered. To protect not just his name, but the people who made it worth anything at all. 3 days after the park incident, Thomas stood at the head of a long, polished conference table, in one of Green Capital's highest boardrooms. The view behind him was commanding. Skyscrapers stretched into the morning haze, the world below humming with motion. But Thomas's eyes were only on the people seated before him, 12 of the most powerful decision-makers in the company, many of whom had whispered behind closed doors since Alice's reappearance. He adjusted his cufflinks and said without preamble, "Let's talk about what matters." Murmurs stirred. One silver-haired board member cleared his throat. "Thomas, I assume you've seen the articles. Speculation's rising. Investors are watching your personal life unfold like a reality show. This relationship, whatever it is, has become a distraction." Thomas didn't flinch. "Then let's make something clear." He tapped a tablet. A photo appeared on the wall monitor. Thomas, Lily, and Daisy in the park, smiling under the willow tree. "This isn't a scandal. It's my life." The room went still. "I won't apologize for choosing peace over pretense," Thomas continued, voice like steel sheathed in calm. "I've built this company with integrity, through recessions, mergers, and hostile takeovers. I've earned the right to live honestly, and I won't let boardroom gossip dictate who I share my Saturdays with." Another board member leaned forward. "Are you saying this is serious?" "Yes," Thomas said. "More serious than anything I ever had with Alice McGraw. That chapter is closed, permanently." "Then what are you asking from us?" "Respect it, or step aside," Thomas said. "I will protect them. And if I find out anyone from this room leaks another personal detail to the press, they'll find themselves in court for invasion of privacy and defamation." Silence stretched. No one met his gaze. "Meeting adjourned," he said, already turning away. That evening Lily opened her door to find Thomas standing there, not in a suit, but in jeans, a one blue sweater, and a nervous kind of smile. Daisy squealed from inside, running to hug him before he could say a word. "We made cookies," she cried. "I saved you one, just one. Mama says you have to share." Thomas laughed, following her inside, but his eyes stayed on Lily. They sat together on the couch, after Daisy had gone to bed. Soft jazz playing in the background. A candle flickered on the table. The world beyond those walls faded. "I talked to the board today," Thomas said, "and I made it very clear where I stand." Lilly raised a brow. "Should I be worried?" He shook his head. "No, but I want you to know, this isn't temporary. You and Daisy, I want to be here, for real. Not in pieces, not in hiding." Lilly was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached for his hand. "I don't need grand gestures," she said. "Just consistency, stability. Someone Daisy can count on, and maybe I can too." Thomas nodded. "I'm trying, every day." Lilly looked at him, truly looked at him, then leaned in. Not hesitant, not shy. Their lips met softly, with the weight of everything unsaid between them. The kiss wasn't about passion. It was about trust. It was about choosing to begin. The next weekend, Thomas made his most public move yet. He donated $2.5 million to the local children's library and community center, in Daisy's name. When asked for a comment by the press, Thomas simply said, "Every child deserves a safe place to dream. And every parent doing the work of raising a kind, brave human deserves support, not judgment." Photographs captured him kneeling beside Daisy at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, handing her a pair of oversized scissors. Lilly stood behind them, proud and steady, her presence undeniable. The message was clear. He wasn't hiding. Alice McGraw hadn't lost her edge, just her audience. Her carefully crafted whispers no longer held the power they once did. In the weeks following Thomas's public affirmation of Lilly and Daisy, her calls to former allies were returned less and less. Editorials stopped asking for her take. Event invitations arrived with conspicuous omissions. No +1, no red carpet welcome. It was as if the city had shifted around her, quietly revoking her status as its darling. One evening, she stood in the mirror of her penthouse suite, scrolling through social media. There it was again, Thomas Greene, standing with Lilly and Daisy at the new library opening, laughing with his arms around them, like he had known them all his life. And the caption? "The city's ice king finally melts, thanks to two girls who don't care about money. Only moments." Alice's hand clenched around her wine glass until it cracked. "This isn't how it ends," she whispered. The next morning, she paid a quiet visit to a former journalist friend, a man she'd helped land several exclusives in the past. She brought him an envelope. Photos, old text messages from Thomas's early dating life with her, embellished stories suggesting that Lilly had been his assistant, his rebound, his kept woman. But something in the journalist's face, as he flipped through the contents, made her pause. "This is desperation, Alice," he said gently. "You're not the headline anymore. He is, but not for scandal, for growth." He slid the envelope back across the table. "Let it go." Her jaw clenched. But in her gut, Alice knew, no one was listening anymore. Her war had ended, and she had lost. The same weekend, beneath a sky of soft cotton clouds and birdsong, Daisy walked hand in hand with Thomas along the park's winding path. A balloon bobbed from her wrist, and in the other hand, she clutched her bear, slightly faded now from months of use. They reached a small bridge overlooking the pond. Lilly trailed behind them, chatting with another mother. Thomas leaned on the railing, smiling as Daisy swung her legs. "Thomas?" she asked suddenly. "Are you gonna marry my mom?" Thomas blinked, startled. Daisy turned to him, blinking up with big, expectant eyes. "Because you already come over a lot, and you said you love us. So I thought, maybe it means you want to be my daddy too." His throat tightened. "Daisy, that's a big question." She nodded solemnly. "I know, but Mama says if something is important, you gotta say it." Thomas crouched so they were eye to eye. "What if I told you that I love your mom very much, and that I love you too? And I'm trying to be someone who deserves both of you. Would that be okay?" She considered that. "Even if it takes a while." Yes, he said softly. Even if it takes a while. Daisy nodded, satisfied. Okay, I'll wait. But don't take too long, okay? Then she ran off to the duck pond, shouting at the water like a tiny general. Thomas remained crouched, breath uneven. He felt Lilly step beside him, her hand slipping into his. You heard? He asked. I did. She caught me off guard. Lilly smiled. She catches everyone off guard, but you answered perfectly. He turned to her. Would you say yes if I ask someday? Lilly didn't answer with words. She leaned down and kissed his temple, her touch soft and full of understanding. I'll wait too, she whispered. Just don't take too long. Days later, Thomas received a thin white envelope. No return address, no postmark. Inside was a single sheet of paper. I'm done, you've made your choice. Good luck with your little fairy tale. A. Thomas folded the letter once, then dropped it into the shredder. As it curled into ash, he stood at the window overlooking the city. The chapter was closed, not by rage or revenge, but by irrelevance. Alice had finally faded into the past, where she belonged. And 8 months had passed, and everything had changed. Quietly, intentionally, without fanfare. Thomas Greene was still powerful, still respected, but now, his name wasn't always the first signature on every deal or the face at every press conference. After years of micromanaging his empire with an iron grip, he had done what once seemed unthinkable: let go. His vice president and CFO now stood at the helm of day-to-day operations. He still reviewed major decisions, still had his hand on the wheel, but he no longer needed to steer every single turn. It had taken time, trust, and deep conversations with the people around him. But Thomas had finally realized that legacy wasn't about control. It was about creating space for life. And his life was sitting beside him on a weathered bench, laughing at Daisy's dramatic reenactment of a school talent show performance. It was Saturday morning. Willow Park was in full bloom, and the air carried the crisp scent of spring. Daisy darted off toward the nearby swings, shouting something about wanting to go higher than the sky. Lilly turned toward him, radiant in the sunlight, her hair pulled into a soft braid, the corners of her eyes crinkling as she watched her daughter. Thomas took a deep breath. Lilly? She looked at him, her smile soft. He stood, then reached into the picnic basket beneath the bench. From it, he pulled a small, wrapped box and knelt slowly before her. Not with grand spectacle, but with the calm certainty of a man who had waited for the right moment. Her eyes widened. This isn't a surprise, he began, voice steady. You've been with me through transformation, not illusion. You saw who I was when I was still healing. You accepted the rough edges, the past, the mistakes. You never asked me to be more than myself, but somehow you made me want to be better every day. Lily's hand came up to her mouth, trembling. And Daisy, he added, glancing toward the swing set. She gave me something I never knew I needed. Joy that isn't earned by status or wealth. Just given freely. He opened the box. A simple, elegant gold ring sat nestled inside. No diamonds, no ornate design. Just a band that gleamed with quiet promise. Lily Maxwell, would you build a life with me? Not in glass towers, but in the places that matter most? Would you marry me and let me love both of you for all my remaining days? Lily didn't speak at first. Her tears fell freely now, but they carried no sadness, just release, just joy. She nodded, then whispered, yes, Thomas, yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood to pull her into his arms. She buried her face against his chest, and for a long moment, neither of them moved. Thomas, Daisy's voice broke the moment as she ran over. Are you crying? Why are you hugging so tight? He laughed through a tear. Because I asked your mom to marry me. Daisy's eyes went wide. Did she say yes? She did. Daisy grinned, hands flying to her mouth. Does this mean you're really going to be my stepdad? He knelt again. If that's okay with you. She launched herself into his arms. Best news ever. And just like that, under the same willow tree where healing had begun, a new chapter started, not built on power or appearances, but on love, truth, and the quiet miracle of second chances. The week after the proposal, Thomas and Lilly sat curled together on her back porch, the soft rustle of early evening wind in the trees, and the murmur of Daisy's voice drifting through the open screen as she read a book aloud to her bear. He reached over and took Lily's hand, his thumb grazing the new gold ring that now lived on her finger. "There's something I want to ask," he said quietly. Lilly turned toward him, her expression open and warm. "Of course," he hesitated. "It's about Daisy." She sat up a little straighter. "I know I'm not her biological father," he said, carefully. "But I don't want to be a step anything. I don't want her to grow up introducing me with an asterisk. If she's willing, and if you're okay with it, I'd like to adopt her. To be her father, officially, permanently, in name and in every way that counts." Lilly blinked back tears, her throat tightened with emotion. She took a breath. "Thomas, you already are her father. She calls you when she's scared, runs to you with her joy, trusts you with everything. But this," she wiped at her eyes, "it's big. I'm okay with it, truly, but out of respect, we need to talk to Marlon." Thomas nodded. "Of course, I don't want to bulldoze anyone, but I want her to know that if she says yes, it's real. I'm not going anywhere." A week later, Lilly arranged the call. Marlon, her ex-husband and Daisy's biological father, now lived several states away, mostly absent but still legally connected. They spoke on speakerphone, Thomas sitting beside Lilly as she explained the request. "I'm marrying Thomas," she said gently, "and he wants to adopt Daisy. We'd like your consent." A pause. Then Marlon's voice came through, grainy but calm. "She talks about him every time I call, more than she talks about me. She told me he showed up to her play, helped her with homework, even learned how to make her favorite grilled cheese." Lilly smiled faintly. "If I'm honest," Marlon continued, "she already sees him as her dad. I messed up a lot of years. If someone's doing the job, I won't stand in the way." He paused again. "Tell her I said yes, and tell her I'm proud of her. If she needs anything, I'm a phone call away." The wedding day arrived, not in grand ballrooms or cathedral halls, but in a garden blooming behind Lily's family church. Close friends, warm air, a string quartet tucked under the arbor. Daisy walked down the aisle first, proudly holding a small sign that read, "My mommy's marrying the best man in the world." As Lilly walked behind her, Thomas's eyes filled. This wasn't just a ceremony. It was the moment everything real became permanent. After vows were exchanged, and the crowd erupted into applause, the officiant gently lifted a hand. "There's one more moment we've been asked to share." Lilly reached into a nearby basket and pulled out a manila envelope. She knelt beside Daisy, who blinked in confusion. Thomas crouched too, holding the papers in one hand and her tiny fingers in the other. "These," he said, voice gentle, "are adoption papers. They say that if you want, I get to be your forever daddy." Daisy's eyes welled up immediately. "You mean I can be Daisy Greene?" He nodded. "If that's what you want." She leapt into his arms, burying her face in his neck. "That's all I ever wanted." Lilly signed. Thomas signed. Daisy pressed her little hand to the page with an ink pad and a squeal. The guests cheered again, some wiping away tears, as the officiant declared not only a husband and wife, but a father and daughter united, not by biology, but by something far deeper: family. 3 years later, the Greene family home sat on the edge of the city, not in a penthouse, but a sun-drenched, ivy-wrapped brick house with a wraparound porch, a vegetable garden Lilly swore was more therapeutic than productive, and a swing that creaked softly beneath the weight of the years it had collected laughter. Inside, The smell of pancakes drifted through the kitchen. Daisy, now 10, leaned on the island counter with a pencil tucked behind her ear, her science project plans laid out like blueprints. "Daddy," she said, eyes narrowed, "are you sure you know how to build a volcano that actually erupts?" Thomas looked up from the frying pan, pretending to be offended. "I used to close international mergers in under a week. I think I can handle a baking soda explosion." Lilly chuckled from the kitchen table where she reviewed briefs for an upcoming environmental justice case through the foundation she now led. Her law degree hung proudly in the hallway, just beneath a framed photo of her and Daisy, holding hands at the ribbon cutting for a community garden they helped fund together. Life wasn't perfect, but it was deeply full. Daisy's adoption had long since been finalized, her name now proudly etched in every school ID and certificate. Daisy Maxwell Greene, she called Thomas Dad now, without hesitation, without needing reassurance. He was the man who coached her soccer team, helped with math homework, and read her the same bedtime story, The Giving Tree, every Sunday night, just because she said it made her feel safe. That afternoon, as they walked through the park, their park, still their Saturday ritual, Daisy skipped ahead with a camera slung around her neck, snapping pictures of birds and trees for a school photography contest. Thomas reached for Lily's hand as they strolled behind her. "Did you ever think this would be our life?" he asked quietly. Lilly smiled. "Not even in my wildest daydream." He paused, watching Daisy chase a butterfly across the same patch of grass where they'd first met. "You gave me everything I didn't know I needed," he said. "Both of you." Lilly leaned her head against his shoulder. "And you gave us something we never had, a constant, a safe place to land." Daisy turned and called to them, waving toward a wooden bench beneath their old willow tree. "Come on," she shouted. "Let's take our annual family goofy face photo." Thomas and Lilly laughed, picking up their pace. There, beneath the tree that had seen their pain, healing, and everything in between, they posed, tongues out, eyes crossed, laughing like no one was watching. Click, a new memory made, a new page added, and somewhere deep in Thomas Greene's soul, the once hollow halls echoed, not with silence, but with the sound of belonging. The end. Hope you enjoy this story by Green Tea Tales. Help our channel to grow with like, share, and subscribe.